Michelle Marino from Kaitau Intermediate in Rotorua, who's a teacher of year 7 and 8 at Kaitau Intermediate. Fabulous to have new people coming in and presenting to us, especially things that are going to be of practical use in the classroom.
That one. So, kia ora. So, I am down in Rotorua. I got involved with this because I ended up at an exempt writing camp in January. So, who am I? So, I'm late to the teaching world. I'm only in my third year teaching. I've got two teenage children who are sport mad. So, they're both currently at hockey at opposite ends of the Bay of Plenty. My son's over in Tauranga playing in a men's division, and my daughter umpires our junior grades. My interest to get into education has been since I was quite young, but spent a lot of time raising our children at home. I love being outside, so I've taught at a local forest school. That's me on a icy morning. I'm very much a believer of if I want students to do it, I will do it with them. And in the last couple of years, I've learnt to use a chainsaw and scuba dive. In the bottom corner, my poor suffering husband, I convinced him on 2 hours sleep that walking up Rainbow Mountain New Year's Day was a good idea to no view. So he puts up with us. I teach at Kaitau Intermediate, so we sit under the maunga that is Mount Nongataha. We have 257 students, very student focused. So being in a low decile area, we love providing our students with lots of opportunities. So I coach our hockey team, so we came second in our grade last year. I've just had 2 weeks release where I've taught 160 of our students to use the ePro 8 gear. And the look on their faces when at the end of the day, I was like, you've done maths all day today. And they're like, no, we didn't. I'm like, yes, we did. There was angles, there's measurement, there's construction, and all sorts of other things. I also deliver the Roots of Empathy program. So that is this year we're using our deputy principal's baby. So they come in every 3 weeks for a visit with one of our classes. And last year I started snow trips. So we take them up to experience the snow because it's something, if we don't do it, they'll probably never get to. So I enjoy being part of a kura that is really student focused at giving them as much as we can while they're there because we only have them for 2 years. So, and it's such a huge transitional phase of their life. So for me, maths has always been my jam. To me, I think when students hit intermediate, they are already feeling pretty down about maths because they feel like they can't do it. There's so many things that they're not doing. They can't do this, they can't do that, and they sort of have quite a poor self belief in it. And so for me, a lot of the enthusiasm that oozes out of me that they start to catch on to. And so my students, by the time they're in year 8, I literally hand them their work on a Monday, unpack stuff on a Monday, and then it's their job to get it back to me by a Friday. So they're building those skills that they need for high school because if they don't hand it in, they don't get it marked. So I remove all concern around getting answers wrong. You really have to have a safe learning environment for that. And so I always encourage if they see I've put something wrong on the board, that they challenge me. They go, oh, fire, I think it should be that. Just like I will always write their answers on the board, no matter what they give me. Because I will then go, is there another way we can do it to double check the answers? Because I value everything they give me. It may not be correct, but we can work through that so that they can use the correct strategies to be finding it. So getting it wrong, I think no mai te hapa sits across one of my boards, which means bring on the mistakes. Mistakes are proof that we are learning. And I've found by removing that stigma of I can't do it to I can do it with lots of tools and stuff like that, they actually, I was saying to the DP, they naturally put a lot of those tools away sort of within 6, 8 months, couple of terms within the classroom, and they'll refer back to them periodically, and that's always okay. And I always remind them that 2 or 3 heads are better than one when you're learning something new. So I have a seating plan to help with behaviour, but there's every person at that table has something to offer everyone else, and you actually have to remind them of that. And sometimes when we're learning something new, I'll pick a different person to do a quick one-on-one. You do it this way so that they feel like they know they can do it. And then it's up to them to share that knowledge. So they have a table expert, and it's often a different kid each week. So it's not always your bright kids, it's sometimes your mid-range and even your lower range kids. And there's one boy I'll talk about later that I've managed to empower him so he'll actually give stuff a go and know that it's okay to get it wrong, try again, and then when he gets it, he's quite a low learner, so he's really proud of himself. So he often takes stuff up to the DP when he's completed work in our phase 3 books. Oh, it's stopped moving. Oh, there we go. So what I do is everything is out. So we have all our times table charts and any tool that we've got for maths, not calculators. We don't use calculators hardly ever because we have brains. I encourage them to use the tool. So at the start of the year, I almost growl my students if they don't get out their times table chart and have it on the table next to them, because there are some students that need it, some don't really, but if there's an expectation they have it out, it means those that need it will use it better. It's just like the lunches in schools. Not everyone needs it, but if we're all eating it, those that do need it are getting what they need. Big on that unpacking together. So we do a lot of what is you know, and then we build it from in there. And a lot of it's I've found is the language is a real barrier. So I've got an example of my board later. What I will do is I think it was written computation with multiplication. I was like, well, what does that mean? What is the word that you know is multiplication? And then we always put that on the board so that there is a terminology that they already understand there for what is essentially our higher academic terms that we need to be using at intermediate. So times table charts. I have one for every student in my class. These are 2.5 years old. These ones are good because they've got the prime and square roots, make them a bit easier, but they use them as bookmarks in their books. They're on their table, they're out all the time. This week, I've noticed there's probably about a third of the class that don't really use them at all, and that's okay. We use them when I'm doing blockets and stuff like that. They use them, absolutely. Does it slow you down? Yes, but it's probably more important that you're interacting and finding the right answer than time-based stuff sometimes. Now, the whiteboards is something I've been introduced to through structured literacy. So we had some people in at school over the holidays, and they said to use these in a review thing. So I have one per student, and they each have their own. Sorry, my cat's about to start pulling things off my desk. And they said, because what it is everyone in your class front faces. So if they write the answer on a whiteboard and then it's hovered upside down, and then once everyone's got it, so you never have to wait more than 30 seconds. So it probably really encourages that wait time that we so very quickly do not do. And then once everyone's hovering it upside down, you say 3, 2, 1, chin it, and they literally just stick it to their chin with the whiteboard facing the front. And that means every single kid in the class answers. So I had a boy that I said to him, he would say my name more often than my kids did when they were toddlers. Like it was just fire, fire, and then he'd forget or he'd called out the answers. Now he gets to answer everything and he's no longer disruptive. So it's also been a really good classroom management tool within the class. And they actually love the whiteboards. They reckon it's fun. And I will do it sometimes as a review at the start of the week and of what we did last week. I'll ask random times tables questions and things like that. So I probably utilize our whiteboards more in maths than I do the literacy. And that's because I'm still learning how to do the structured literacy. We only started this term. Now, this is a tool I was shown while I was at uni, and I looked at it, and as someone that does maths, I went, oh, that's a pain. But I was relieving at the same time, and I took them into the classroom, and the kids loved it. So when you get into your double-digit multiplication, it just creates these really big numbers that the students struggle with. So these ones here, you actually draw the line. So I've gone along to your 23, you draw your line down, gone along to your 14, draw your line across, and everything in that top left-hand box, every dot is the answer. They can either count the dots up individually and take forever, or you can group it. So this one's grouped in fives. The one I had back then was grouped in groups of 10, so they can immediately see that there's 200. And then you can go down to the bottom. The green and the red down the bottom are 40 plus 40. And then you come down to the sides and you've got, I don't know, I'm sorry, a cat just bit me. Um, but they can group it off into partitioning, which some of them went, oh, we've never been able to understand the double digit multiplication, but when and I had lots of these in A5 format, and I just said use as many as you liked, and they used it for every one of their multiplication that day, and they were like, I get it, I see it. So they build that understanding that where the number comes from. This one we introduced this week. So my DP, after seeing the times table charts, he's like, he'd never seen them used in a class before. And he goes, have you heard of the Taranaki sprint? So I'll change it from Taranaki challenge. And he said you get 5 minutes to answer as many of those as you can. So he photocopied the 7, 9, 4, 6, 8, that grid, minus the answers, onto a piece of paper. And he said they have 5 minutes. You answer as many as you can. So we allow them to use their times table charts because realistically it slows you down, but you can find the answer. And when you finish, you call time and you get your time for the block. And he said, if you know your times tables, you can do it in a minute and a half. If you're super fast, I think he's had a kid do it in 40 seconds. So literally he's being slowed down by the writing. But what he challenged my class so that because he did it on the board at the end in a minute too. So he said if we can get 7 in our class to beat him, there's a fish and chip lunch. So in the last 3 days, if we've had any downtime, their answer is, can we do a Taranaki sprint? Can we do a Taranaki sprint? So we actually made books to keep track of this, and I changed the numbers around so they're not remembering the order, but that the challenge, kids love competition and stuff like that. It's really motivated them to build their learning and their understanding. So what I then also use is Block It, because Block It gives you the answer if you get it wrong. And it's that game thing. They just prefer stuff like that. Now, my year eights last year, when I worked it out, their accuracy improved by 20% in 6 months by using this. We didn't do it daily, 2, maybe 3 times a week if you're lucky. And they kind of went, oh, it's Block It. Oh, yep, we're doing maths. The answer for Block It is always it's maths. They enjoy it. They get the answers. The more they used it, the better they get. And I think sometimes if they don't think they're learning, they learn a little bit better. So, and my other one is urgency. I don't do life in slow motion. Potentially an ADHD thing, so they're going to get their learning at 1.5 times the pace. So we don't muck around. So that is, we're going to do this, then we're doing this, then we're doing that. So our blocks are down to an hour. So we're almost squeezing what we were doing in an hour 15 in that hour. So it's keeping them going so they don't have time to muck around. Essentially, they have to stay focused, they have to get it going. And I will check in with books, and if they haven't got it, they do it at morning tea, because in my mind, if you're wasting my learning time, then I waste their playtime. So day 1 of a week in my classroom, we're using Oxford. So what I do is we always do the pre-test. I've said to them, there's always new language. It's just a gauge to see how much they know, because some weeks they're amazing and we can, like our statistics, we took that straight through to graphing in Google Sheets because they could read the graphs straight away, could work out what was happening and that sort of thing. And what we do from there, I go, well, what's our topic? Meanwhile, I've already written the formal title of the topic on the board. And I encourage them to, if they look at the board and read it, that's great because they're using what's available to them. So we unpack it, what it means. I'll prompt and probed until we get the answers I want, essentially, because I write what I want on the board, but they need to feed that to me first. Then we'll check in with the Oxford book. And this is where being vulnerable and honest with the students around, we're not perfect, we don't know everything. So if I make mistakes, I get them to let me know. So I had it in week 3 of term 1 this year. We were looking at integers, and I completely and utterly flipped the rules round the wrong way. And it wasn't until we opened the Oxford book and I was like, that doesn't match the board. Board doesn't match the book. So then we went and Googled it and worked it out and then corrected the board so it had the right information on it. Because I've got a massive whiteboard, so our maths unpack stays on the board all week for them to refer to. So that was a really good learning in that they can challenge me. They were really respectful in that. And then they know that I'm respectful with how I help them, and it's a two-way street. And I think it's important for kids to know that we're not perfect and we don't know everything. So day two, we double check. I've got two TAs that come in and out of my class. So sometimes one will be there and the other one's not, and then I have the other one the next day. I'll go, oh, fine up, he wasn't here yesterday when we unpacked our maths. Can you catch her up, please? And I'll write what you need me to on the spare space on the board. And so they'll teach the TA how to do the maths, which I think is quite neat. And then we just go through and double check what we need is on the board each day and then go through our practice stuff. So we do the Oxford book, a bit of transom, and some other stuff as the week allows because our timetable gets pretty carnage like at intermediate. So this is what my maths board looks like for the week. So the written computation with multiplication was this last week's topic. Multiplication, what is that? So they look at times, literally the times sign, multiply, and our times table. And then they worked out that it means really big numbers. And that written computation is a topic title we've had twice already because we've done it with addition and subtraction. So what I did, I went, we've already done that. Can you tell me what on your whiteboards, what two math signs have we used this with already? And this is the whiteboards here in use. So I went, what have we done? So I can look around there and see some of them have already confused because there's multiplication written on the board. They've already put that on there, but it was addition and subtraction that we've done. So it can tell me straight away who remembered what we did and in what manner. So then on the bottom left here, I've got the same equation but with the different things. So I went addition, did the 436, and they told me how to write the 28 underneath it because that place value is really important. We did the same with the subtraction. So, and I said, where do I start when I work this out? They're like, start with the ones. So I was like, is our place value important? Yes. And we always start with the ones. So that's remember we put in these remembers your place value. That's really important. And we always start in the ones column. So I then put into that along the bottom there, the 436, and I put times 28. And I said to them, where am I going to start? Again, in that ones column, because that's where they have to start. So I then worked that out with them. So I probably threw them straight into the deep end. They kind of followed when I went through it with the color coding and the steps. But when I asked them, where is it? There, how was that? I draw terrible things on the board so that they know I won't judge their drawing. So this is their thumbs up, sideways thumb, or downwards thumb. So they knew that I was working for this. So I was taking photos. So instead of chinning it, we were facing it so you can't see their faces. So I was like, okay, that was a bit mean. We started a bit big. So I then went and did what is on the other side with the 35 times 6, and we got the 210. So from there, we had a look in our Oxford book and we went through because that one starts at the 35 times 6 level, not the double digits. Right, so that was that one. So through there, because we're doing times tables, I'll turn around and go, oh, so what is, and this one it was a 4 times 4. So you can see straight away this young man in the top picture on the left, he probably doesn't quite get it because I think he had 4 plus 4 or something like that. So he's my target boy that I've got pictures of his book later on. When we worked out that height, the 436 times 28 or 25, we had 12,208. I went, I'm just starting to introduce the whole putting the commas into their numbers, making sure that you're writing things out properly. So they had to write the number and show me where the comma goes before I added it to the board. Doing it via the whiteboards enables every kid to answer, not just one. So that was my check-in. So after I'd done the smaller number, they were definitely a lot happier. So this is my young boy in the corner. This is a kid that still counts one to one on his fingers and relies heavily on his times table charts. And at times needs help to even remember how to read that. So he's a fetal alcohol, ADHD, dyslexic, and has the retention and memory of an excited 4-year-old potentially. So this is further into the book. So this is all at phase three. So I don't, some of our teachers at school will go and get the phase 5 and 6 books and use those to scaffold them in. My class goes straight into the phase three book. I'm like, no, this is where we're at. We can work together to get there. So this one here, we're straight into the double digit multiplication. The zeros, the placeholder was already there. So he got that very quickly. That if it's got there was a zero there for a double digit multiplier, he had to put a zero down and straight away. As you can see through the workings, he could get the carryover onto the next column. At times further down, he didn't. He was putting it straight up the top. So it took a little bit of work. I added in the lines for his place value. But all of these, bar the bottom one where I ended up writing it in the book with him, he did E and F on his own completely, H and I on his own, and then I left him with the bottom row and I came back and corrected those with him. This is a young man. I'm not sure he's ever experienced much success in his maths. So that self-pride of actually writing in that same book as the same page as the person sitting next to him has become a real mana boost for him, and he really, really enjoys it and works hard to do so. And our DP's great because he'll come in and check in and see how he's doing as well. I've found the other thing too that is really important is games. So if we've got time at the end, if anyone wants to learn how to make games in Gemini, I can, it's not on the slides, but I don't mind doing that. It's what I learned at the NZAMT game camp in January. If it's a game and they don't think they're learning, they'll do it over and over and over and over again. So I've got my own one that's hosted on my personal Gmail because I pay for that because it's got my storage with all my resources on it. And then periodically, I haven't for a little while, but I'll add games on there for them to go and do. I worked with a young lady that was spending some time at our house. She is NCA level 1 this year and had just the worst self-impression of herself in maths, and they were doing simplifying fractions and she couldn't get it. She was like, no, I don't know what I'm doing. I handed her a times table chart, explained the process, started small, then we got to some slightly bigger ones just on some paper, and then in there I wrote a game. So most of my games will go from a level 2, old curriculum level 2, through to a level 5. And she, in half an hour, I got her from going from that level 2, the very base, all the way through to her NCEA level work. And she's like, oh, I get it. I can do this. So doing different levels through there, you can encourage those students that are already where they need to be. You just start at level 3, darling. Don't do the level 1. So that everyone can play the game or do the exercises online, but at their appropriate levels. Get outside. That was I love being outside. So I took in my bow and arrow last year, and for our statistics unit, I've only got 3 arrows left, but each kid shot 3 arrows. We measured their distances, we created graphs, we created averages, we created means. They're outside competing with each other. I managed to smash them out of the park and go, this is how you do it. So that was great. It was also a great leveler for some of our more physical kids actually couldn't do it. So it took a little bit to teach them that coordination to shoot the arrow. And then when the national park fires were on last year, they asked me how big an acre was. So we worked it out, went out and measured parts of our school field to work out how many school fields were on fire because we'd just been to the snow. So it actually meant something to them. But yeah, for me, they need, like, maths is part of everything in life. I think the more I relate what I'm doing back to what they'll do when they're old. So when I had the kids in doing ePro 8, well, that's maths. Actually, this is my husband's job. He's got staff that have to put stuff together for the guardrails on the side of the road. They have to calculate measurement distances, angles, strength testing to make sure that we're going to be safe when we drive past those barriers. The budgeting, we did a whole, I took them through a budget for a week. So I gave them all my figures except my mortgage because that would they would have died. But we went and found rent on Trade Me, and then we worked out an average rent for our local area for a three-bedroom home, worked out what they needed a week, then worked out high, medium, low incomes. We went onto the IRD website to work it out after tax. And then they kind of, and we made them a double income so they could decide whether they had a high, medium, low, or whether they were on the job seekers benefit and things like that. And then they went and found jobs and worked out what sort of training they needed. But if you can give it real day application, they definitely get involved a lot more. I think when we were doing percentage discounts, I think it was around Black Friday. I gave them $300 to buy, gave them $300 to buy a new wardrobe, and they had to find whatever items they wanted, find their normal price, find their sale price, therefore work out the percentage difference to work out who was the savviest shopper in our classroom. And that one was, I think, it was actually one of our boys that did the best, with one of our girls coming in close second. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I just find everyone is capable. You just have to make them believe. But yeah, that's kind of me. I don't know if there were any questions, if anyone wanted anything else.